So, most of you, I'm sure you've seen this beautiful spectacle. Been growing up in Kenya, one thing that always happened is there will always be a woman carrying a bucket full of water with an impeccable balance. Balance like this. But the question is, what is balance? Growing up, in my household, we had a bucket for everything. You know, a bucket for water, for dirty laundry, for milking the cow. But there was always this particular mysterious bucket that was either missing or empty. It was a money bucket. My family had a long-distance relationship with money. To make this experience more entertaining, my father decided to compete with money to see who could be more artistic. What happened next is that when you grow up in a single-parent childhood, single-parent family like me, there are challenges that you have to deal with. But ultimately, I thought and I believed that if I could fill this money bucket, all my problems will actually disappear. I will have a happy family, a happy home, and ultimately I find peace. My name is Ngugi Karega. The name Karega, in Kikuyu, it means, I will not do it. But if you go to India, it means, I will do it. And there is a story of to do or not to do. There was a plan. I had a master plan. I had an idea that I was told that if I did it, my money bucket would be filled. And the plan was, Ngugi, if you study hard, you get a college degree, get a job, you'll be paid well, and that will never be a problem again. And therefore, my plan, very clear. Graduate with an A from Starry Boy Center, get an MIT degree in computer engineering, get a job. But life decides to do or not to do as well. I got a C, and no engineering degree for me. So life took an interesting turn once again. But coming from a tribe known as the Kikuyu, we have this common stereotype that when everything else fails, we turn to business, and so on. Now, if you can remember, back in 2011, before Netflix, we used to download movies from torrent, buy them on CDs, and sell them. That was my game. Now we're nailing it. I had a structure that worked. I download a movie, watch it, have the trailer on the screen. Whenever customers will come, I'll narrate the movie and sell it to them. And it worked. But sometime in 2012, I came across this really interesting Bollywood movie, The Three Idiots. Standing in front of you is one of the idiots. There is a movie about the engineering life, school life in India. And in this movie, the guy in the middle is called Ranchodas Shamaldas Chanchan. Rancho made life in engineering school so easy, such that in the middle of all chaos, trying to submit assignments, failing, not paying school fees, we had one philosophy. When everything else goes wrong, and your little heart is beating, take a moment and say, all is well. All is well. All is well. and run inspired something within me. My dream of becoming a computer engineer was once again reborn. Fast forward, 6 months later, I sold everything I owned, and I was at an airport heading to Bombay to pursue computer engineering from one of the local schools. This happened when my friends and family came together, contributed $2,000, and said, go there, make it happen. And when you do, you come back and extend an olive branch to the rest of the folks and pull them out of poverty. And as you would expect, to do what not to do. I started the plan. I went to India, enrolled in engineering school, and after 1 month, I dropped out. There was no way I was going to wait for 4 years to fill that money back. My plan was not a degree. My plan was always money. Get rich or die trying. So, one particular day, I participated in a hackathon organized by IBM, and I was among the winners. And so IBM ended up offering me a job as a cloud engineer. Now that was the beginning of my life. Life took a dramatic turn. And with all the resources within my disposal, and obviously being in Bangalore, the center of innovation, I decided to build a business, a startup. And I had an unfair advantage in my hand. Think of this, a young black man speaks 4 Indian languages fluently, selling to you, if you don't buy it, something is really wrong with you. And so things were happening. My life was moving. I was making money. And finally, my money bucket was full. What happened after here can only be summed up in the famous word of one of the most ancient philosophers and poets. And this is what he said. I took a pill in Ibiza. Picture of Vichy, I was cool. But when I finally got sober, I felt 10 years old, but damn it, it was something to do. I'm living down in Bangalore. I drive a sports car just to prove I'm a real big baller because I made $1 billion and spent it on girls and shit. That was me. In every meaning of those words. I was broke again. I had spent all the money. No friends, no one around me, but only a voice of Franchodos, Shamaldos, chanting. On his road. On his road. And with very little left in me, there was no way of coming back to Nairobi broke and no engineering degree. So I decided to travel, explore, but I had a purpose. I knew now how to make money. I knew I'll make it again. But if I do, I never wanted to find myself in that situation again. And that was the way. Now what I'm going to share next are just a few lessons I learned on the way. Most of these lessons that I learned are not answers, but small little phrases and statements that always linger at the back of my head whenever I'm about to make a decision, whenever I'm about to do anything. In the beginning of my journey, which lasted over 3 years backpacking across India, cycling from the northern to the southern tip of the country, I started at a place called Oroville. In Oroville, because I had nothing to do, I just went somewhere and decided to be a volunteer. Now, it was a mindfulness workshop. And in this workshop, obviously, being the only black man there, I stood out. So the instructor called me and said, come here. And we were standing in a circle, and he gave me a teddy bear. And he said, throw it to that person. I took the teddy bear, and then I threw. But before I threw it, he said, stop. But the teddy bear had already left my hand. And then he asked me, what have you learned from this experience? The core of this story is, he wanted to teach us one important philosophy in life. Before you start, stop. Take a moment to reflect, think, figure out what action am I about to do. And this philosophy has been really, really fundamental along the journey that I traveled. My next destination was an interesting one. It was a part of the travel where I kept traveling north and north of India. And this particular place is called Banaras. Now in Banaras, I met a group of people who had a very interesting question. Kahan se aaya? Kahan jaoge? Tum kahan se aaya? Aur kahan jaoge? Where did you come from? And where are you going? Now this question, it's not literal. It's a question that was begging for introspection and retrospection. And obviously, I had no answers to this question. But obviously I was going somewhere. And so I ended up in a place called Shillong, the far northeast of India, near the border of India and Myanmar. And in this place, I was volunteering as a teacher, math teacher, in a school of deaf and blind people. And something really struck me. Because I don't know whether you've ever experienced where people see you when they can't see you, where people hear you while they can't hear you, where people love you for who you are, and they do not define you based on where you come from, how much money you have in your pocket. For the first time in my life, I experienced love. And making money and filling up a bucket was no longer the core intention. Love. True, pure love in the most purest form. That was Shillong. But then I had to move on. And in the process of moving on, I got on a bicycle. And this again could potentially be one of the most exciting experiences of my life. I had no money at this stage, but throughout my travel in India, especially on the cycle trip, I spent 0 rupees. The reason being, every time I ended up at the tea stall or a tapiola just to have a bite, they would give me food. When I was about to pay whatever I had, they would say no. When I asked why, they kept saying, Atiti Devo Baba. What is this? Atiti Devo Baba. Now, Atiti is a Sanskrit word that means guest. And Devo means God. So, guest is God. And it is the core Indian philosophy that underpins the idea that you should treat everyone who comes in your life with absolute kindness and absolute selflessness. And this, again, kept going on through my life, especially after the experience that I had, where I was loved with absolute kindness and absolute selflessness. And I remember, after my trip, my cycle trip, I was offered a job at the African High Commissions in New Delhi, and they created a fictitious post called India-Africa Youth Ambassador. One day, this gentleman called David Kuskay came to me and said, Ngugi, do you have a degree? I said, no. He said, for you to make it in the diplomatic world, you need a degree. I was eventually offered a scholarship in one of the most premium private universities in India. And I remember that day when I was heading off from Kolkata all the way back to New Delhi, I was listening to this song with my headphones, and it went like this. Send someone to love me, I need to rest in arms, keep me safe from harm and pouring rain. Give me endless summer, Lord, I feel the cold, feel I'm getting old before my time. As my soul heals the shame, I will grow through this pain. Lord, I'm doing all I can to be a better man. In that moment, I knew I really, really wanted to be just one thing, a better man. But I didn't know what it means to be a better man. But I knew that song said two things that I was missing. Someone to love me, and I really wanted to be a better man. When I ended up in uni, just 3 days after being there, a new bucket of love introduced itself died upon me. I rested in safe hands, and I found love. I found one thing that I was asking in the beginning of this question. I found stability. I found balance. I found a place where I could finally build a foundation that will never fall again. My question to you is, what is your balance? Thank you.